Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
Oh, it's magic.
It's magic.
It's the WacArnold's Brothers.
No,
we gotta work on incorporating some of that better. Either way, Jesus, dude, we're back for episode 41. Still breaking down the 80s. You know, we're still doing an 80s movie roundup.
Yes, sir.
What years are we doing this episode, David?
1983, 84, and 85.
Yeah,
So-
you got it. Some juicy years. It's
sorry, what's up?
I was just gonna say, as you get more into the 80s, it just gets juicier and juicier.
Yeah, there's a lot of good shit in the 80s. It's one of those things where it makes me wish that I would have been born in like the 70s so I could have went and seen all these fucking movies in theaters. You know what I mean?
Oh my god, dude, yeah, 100. Like I feel like, you know, and this may sound stupid to somebody else, but I would use, like, if I could only use a time machine like 3 times, I would probably use it on like going to see, I don't know which movie, but going
like
to
Star
see
Wars in theaters.
yeah, or like one of these epic horror, you know, like when you know, fucking Friday the 13th first dropped, you know, something like that, like just for like a moment or two like that, you know.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh, dude, just being in a theater with like people just like as they're losing their, like, what just happened, you know?
Right.
Like,
Speaking of theaters, we're recording this Friday morning, you know, I got to work tonight, but I fucking can't wait to see the Batman this weekend. Like,
oh man,
I've been stoked about it for a while, and all I'm seeing is just like rave reviews, so I can't wait.
Yeah, dude, same. I've been seeing nothing but good things. Like,
It's I can't believe it's 3 hours though. That's crazy, but I'm stoked.
Dude, when they announced that, I was really surprised that it was longer than The Dark Knight Rises, because I remember when I saw that movie, like I felt like that movie was like really long. It felt like a really long one, and so like anyway, yeah. I just wonder all that they're gonna pull up in this movie. You know?
Yeah, I'm stoked. Yeah,
hell yeah. But that being said, we got some good horror movies for y'all this week. We got the like David said, we're doing 83, 84, and 85, and man, yeah, I feel like we got some good ones. But I say, you know, we always want to start in chronological order, so we'll start with 1983.
Yeah, we got a couple. You know, there's some. I feel like there was a couple 3D movies that came out in 1983. There was Amityville 3D. There was Jaws 3D. So there was still this 3D craze going on.
Yeah.
Psycho 2 came out in 83. Shout out to Sledgehammer, which
Oh god,
keeps getting brought up. You know, we've covered that in full. Cujo came out in 83,
dude.
but I want to talk, which is a very, very solid adaptation for sure. And a very frightening one. But I want to talk about another Stephen King adaptation that I feel like I just enjoy a little bit more. Having read the book multiple times and seen the movie multiple times, but Christine is just, I feel like sometimes his work doesn't really translate to the screen. And I feel like a book like this could have been easily screwed up. Because, I mean, if you think about it, there's been other movies about killer cars. And they could have chose to do something like totally crazy with it, but it actually is pretty fits pretty well in line with the book. And John Carpenter's Christine is just a classic, in my opinion.
Yeah, so, you know, I've never read the book, so that's something, like, as I keep getting into adult life, I've really wanted to like get some Stephen King on, you know, like,
it's never a bad decision.
Yeah, so I mean, I might have to go down to the library and try and check out, see if they have a copy of Christine.
It's a good read.
It's a really, from what I remember about this movie, it's like I really like, it's got these really awesome supernatural elements to it that you don't full on see in some other like kind of a killer car-esque movies. All killer car movies have some sort of supernatural element, unless it's just like the driver's fucking crazy, you know?
Right.
But this one, I remember like you get that spookiness, but you also, you know, like it transcends just a car. You know what I mean?
Well, because it's like Arnie, like, well, I was going to talk about that too, but like Arnie himself seems to be like possessed himself. Like he, you know, he starts out as this kind of nerdy, you know, quiet guy, but the more that he spends time with Christine, it starts to change him. He becomes more of like, you know, an arrogant person.
Yeah.
He starts dressing different and just. But what you were mentioning is that you see these things with the car, and there's like multiple scenes where the car, really, really cool shots actually, of like there's a scene where all of the this group of bullies that, you know, Buddy Repperton and his gang that pick on Arnie, they fucking destroy his car, and there's this awesome scene where the car rebuilds itself.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like, it's such even to this day, it's such a cool shot. The way they did that, where I'm pretty sure they just filmed the car being destroyed and then like reversed the footage to make, you know what I mean?
It's so
I'm not sure.
Smooth. It's so smooth looking though, dude. Like it looks so fucking good.
It looks way better than if they would have like, if they made that movie today, it'd be all CGI and weird, but I think it looks great.
Yeah. Oh, I agree, man. And that scene in particular is one of those scenes where like I said, I feel like, you know, it transcends and becomes like this like supernatural, you know, like really supernatural heavy story where it's like, why is it like, how does this car do this? You know?
And that's
like,
and that's what I think is so cool about it, is that that's never fully explained.
No,
like,
yeah.
That's the one thing that I really like about it is, you know, sometimes with movies like this, like they feel like in the movie they feel like they need to explain. And I think sometimes it's cooler with things when there is no explanation and you can like let your mind run wild. But it's just, you know what I mean? No one knows why this fucking Plymouth Fury is, you know, seemingly possessed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful looking car.
I agree with you, man. Like I mean, and that's something I think I really just enjoy about, you know, a good spooky story is that, you know, they leave you a good spooky story leaves you with a question, at least at the end of it, where you're just like, you know, did the killer get away? In this case, you really just don't know what the fuck is up with this car. Like, you know, and as far as you know, like this could just continue, you know? Right.
Because there is like at the end there is in the movie there's just the ending is cool where, you know, they like I said, Arnie starts changing. His best friend and his girlfriend start to notice that he's like essentially in love with his car. You know what I mean? That's just a way you could put it. And, you know, long story short, they get in, you know, Leigh, his girlfriend, Leigh, his girlfriend, and Dennis, his friend, get into like a confrontation with Christine and end up destroying winning. And they take the car to get to a car crusher. But there's this really cool scene at the end where it's like in a block, and the radio still pops on, showing that it still has that like power. So who's to say that, you know, it couldn't have rebuilt itself even in that state? So it is something cool about it.
Exactly. You really just don't know.
I don't think people have, like, as far as Stephen King's work goes, there's a lot, you know, crazier shit that he's written, but I think that this is one of my favorite books of his. It's just a really interesting concept. And just the visuals of this beautiful car with no one behind the wheel running people down. Like there's this one scene in the movie where one of the gang members, Peter Moochie Welch, he gets trapped in an alley, and it's a really cool scene where he gets further and further in this alley to where he thinks Christine can't reach him, and sure enough, Christine, you know, makes her way through that sharp alley, hurting herself in the process, but is able to run him down. It's just a really well done scene.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, it's like I think you're kind of right. I think this one it sort of slips by people these days, you know. But you know, it's interesting that you bring up how you think that this was a good translation of like the book to movie, because you know, even on the last pod we were talking about with The Shining, like sometimes Stephen King's writing style doesn't like, you know, directly apply to you know, the script, like how he submitted basically a script that was like read like a book, and Kubrick was like, no. But like sometimes it fucking like it's better to kind of follow a little closer to the material, with this Christine example, it sounds like, you know. And I don't know, it's just interesting. It's interesting that some like, I don't know. I mean, I
also think it's like in Carpenter's like what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Where you're a director or filmography, like where,
yeah.
You know, it's not like one that gets thrown out that much. You know what I mean? You obviously, when you think of Carpenter, there's other movies that come to mind way before you'd ever get to Christine. I don't think it gets the love and the credit it deserves, is what I'm trying to say.
No, that's actually a good point. I'm guilty of that, I suppose, where it's like more so than I think of this as a John Carpenter movie. I think of it just like you know, like something addendum to Stephen King, you know.
Totally.
Which is kind of interesting, actually. Now that you bring that up, wow. Never thought about it that way, but yeah, that movie wouldn't be anything without Carpenter's vision. That's for fucking sure. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, you know, another movie about someone changing, I suppose, that I want to bring up from 1983 comes a little old crazy fucking movie called Videodrome. So,
well, yeah, if it's got Cronenberg's name attached, you know it's gonna be definitely out of left field.
Yeah. So, you know, David Cronenberg, who I'm looking forward to talking about The Fly once we get there.
Oh hell yeah!
That's my favorite pinnacle, obvious. But Videodrome is such. It's not for everybody. It's like a weird meaty movie. It's like it has. So it centers around James Woods' character, who basically runs a television station. To put it lightly, he's into some weird shit himself. He stumbles into some snuff films, and he decides that the new direction for his TV station will be to air snuff films, and so proceeds this crazy unfolding of hallucinatory, like grotesque imagery mixed with like sexual bondage-esque like fucking weirdness. And like at times you just like, what's cool about this movie, multiple things are cool about this movie, but one of the things that I like is that you really just don't at times know what perspective you're looking at, like whether
or what's
it's like,
real or what's not, you know what
exactly. I mean? It's crazy how you like almost like some movies accomplish it, and I think this does a pretty good job where you like just slip in and out of like reality and you know, dream-like hallucination states, and leaves the viewer sort of disoriented, like, where am I? Like,
it's also like when you just, if you haven't seen the movie and you would think that James Woods and Debbie Harry would be a weird would be a weird combination, but for some reason it just works. So, and I love her as an actress. She's amazing.
Yeah, Debbie Harry low key was like really cool to see in this movie. You know, like I don't think I had ever had like a frame of reference for her acting before ever watching Videodrome, which just seems like a weird first gig, I suppose. but you know, it's just like, it's, you know, the other thing I want to mention about this movie that's something to love.
There's always continue. Sorry.
Is like, you know, you have just the gnarliest special effects at times. You know, like where it's like there's this great shot where it's this man is like, he takes a VHS tape basically, and he like goes up to James Woods' character and he just like inserts it into his stomach, like he's like inserting like, you know, programming or whatever. but it's like this, you know, this gnarly, like this like gaping wound appears in his chest, and like the, you know, he shoves it in. It's just fucking grody at times. It's like
you know, it's kind of similar to that scene that I think is probably like the most iconic scene from the movie, where he puts the handgun in his, you know what I mean? It's all slimy and stuff too, and like it's just, that's what I love about Cronenberg though, is just those like disturbing like body horror that he does. And I think that this is only a movie that he could have pulled off.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's not. Honestly, I've only seen this movie once, and it's been a long time. So I feel like it's something that I need to watch again just to get a better frame of reference. But I do remember just being like any of his movies, it's beautiful and grotesque at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, 100%, dude. That is the thing to appreciate, you know. You know, the actors, the acting in the movie is like all great. You know, James Woods does a fine job. I would say, like, you know, it's nothing that's like really stand out. It's just you're there for the story, the visuals, the you know, real special effects. Like,
and there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot going on in this movie, you know. There's like political shit. I don't know, man. There's just a lot in this movie.
It's a huge commentary on censorship in a lot of ways. Not that like I think Cronenberg's advocating for, you know, snuff movies or anything to be available on air, but you know, it's just you know, it's a big. It leaves you wanting, like, with the question of, like, you know, how far does censorship go? Like, where, you know, is too far? What are our own personal boundaries? Like,
true, because it is kind of like, if some people, how far could they go if they end up going down that rabbit hole? You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's what you see kind of represented through Woods, you know, in a lot of ways.
It also has a pretty, It also has a pretty gnarly ending.
Yeah, it's, you know, like I said, everything about this movie is fucking gnarly. Like,
true.
And so it just, the ending just kind of, it gets you. But
I do like I like how like part of the movie is that one of the characters, though, his like goal is a world where television replaces every aspect of everyday life, and I feel like they're not okay. So I feel like they were kind of a how do I word this? So, unfortunately, I feel like when you're a kid, that is like your aspect of your life is TV. Like, you want to get home from school and watch TV, and I think it's a good commentary of maybe this like far off future where that could be a possibility.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Because there's people that have that thing like, oh, you know, you watch the boob tube, you're an idiot, you know, like.
Dude, I've heard the phrase boob tube forever. Oh man. But no, that's very true, man. And you know, it's a really I don't want to say classic science fiction theme, but it's like a theme you see in like good science fiction works from the past, like Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, where like his Montaug's wife is like slowly trying to surround herself with you know, screens, and you know, and it's kind of, it becomes like this worry of like how much is involved, and it does almost have a commentary that lasts to this day because of like, you know, like ongoing constant screen use by all of us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
now more so than ever, like everywhere you go, people are just on their fucking phones. It's just like, Jesus Christ.
It's and so, you know, it's interesting, but like I said, not for the faint of heart. That's
no.
You know, But I do just want, one last thought. You got to appreciate Cronenberg for this movie. Like, I think it gets, although I put, The Fly on a different pedestal, this movie has its own place. I think that kind of still fits in, like we said, to this day.
He is just such a unique filmmaker.
Oh yeah, and he's never compromised. I feel that's something I like about him. He's
even with The Fly,
done.
like where I feel like even though that was probably like his most toned down movie, there was still a lot of what makes him who he is. You know what I mean? The Fly is a classic. As far as that's like one of those times where the remake is far and away better, in my opinion, than the original. So
yeah, the original's doesn't hold a candle if you ask me.
Well, it also doesn't hold up very well. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's just one of those things.
But continuing down our rabbit hole of 1983, which is going to be your next pick, my friend?
Well, there's two of the movies that I'm going to be talking about are anthologies. So the first one we're going to talk about is 1983's Twilight Zone, the movie, which obviously most people that watch horror know what Twilight Zone is. But if you don't, it was a late 50s, early 60s Rod Serling television show, a sci-fi show. Honestly, it's one of those shows that to this day has stood the test of time.
Oh god, yeah, dude.
Everything, it's such a great concept. Just obviously every episode is just centered around sci-fi or horror, different, the other aliens, technology, whatever the case may be.
It's just you cannot understate how you cannot overstate. Well, you cannot state enough, we'll say, how fucking amazing Twilight Zone is,
or influential it was. For sure.
Have you checked out Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone?
Unfortunately, I have not.
It holds up quite a bit. I haven't made my way through the second season that they made, but the first season, I remember instantly being sucked in because he just like hits his cadence, with his narration and the presentation is there. So it's a good translation of like the idea of the show. But still, like, I don't know.
I'm stoked.
I don't know if the Science Fiction Channel still does this, but they used to run an all-day Twilight Zone marathon, like every episode on New Year's Eve, and it just roll right into New Year's Day. And if you never had anything to do, like you could just sit there and watch Twilight Zone all fucking night and get weirded out.
Yeah, there's also like it's like called like Me TV. It's like a basic cable channel. All it shows is shows from back in the day, but it's like at midnight. Maybe it's like midnight and 1 in the morning. Back to back, they have Twilight Zone and then Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which is a nice little 1-2 punch. And one real quick, just to divert back to Jordan Peele, cannot wait for Nope to come out. I was never really a big fan of Key and Peele, but him as a director, on the money, bro. Both, you know what I mean?
100.
Both of his feature films are phenomenal.
Can you imagine having like his directorial debut being Get Out, just coming out swinging, being such a great heavy hitter, following it up. That's with fucking Us, dude. Like a Us creepy is movie, man. Yeah, it's such a good movie. And yeah, you're right, dude. Nope. Like, I'm so intrigued by what the fuck is gonna happen in that movie.
Totally, because it's just like kind of vague. But you make a good point. There's directors that spend their whole career trying to make something like Get Out, and he just makes it his first movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But Twilight Zone the movie is it's kind of like in music there'll be a super group where all these members of prolific bands get together, and this movie is essentially that, because it's produced by Steven Spielberg. He also directed one of the 4 segments. John Landis, who directed Animal House, American Werewolf in London, he directs the segment. Joe Dante, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, directed a segment, and George Miller, who's famous for Mad Max, directed a segment. So it's not only is it 4 heavy hitters that are directed these segments, but we also got people in it like, Dan Aykroyd's in the wraparound segment, Scatman Crothers is in it, John Lithgow, this movie was always so entertaining for me growing up, and it still is. But it's also one of those movies that has supposedly not necessarily like a cursed movie like The Omen or The Exorcist a curse, but there's a dark cloud around the movie, because there's a scene where while they were filming it, a stunt helicopter crashed. And led to, it was not a good. But anyway, so the movie.
I didn't realize that.
The movie has 4 different segments, and one of them's like a reworking of an old episode, or actually 3 of them are. Or actually, sorry, all 4 of them really are.
Yeah.
But the first segment is a really interesting one, and this one kind of totally fits the bill of like what a Twilight Zone episode going to be about. It's about this really racist man who winds up in all these different situations. Like he leaves the bar he's at, and he winds up in France during World War II, and these Nazis stumble upon him. And then he winds up in Alabama, and he's seen as a black man to Ku Klux Klan members. Then he winds up in the Vietnam War, and then it ends where he's back in France, heading to a concentration camp. And it's such like, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying, like, it doesn't. Yeah, it has nothing but like he goes from like grim situation to grim situation, reflecting his like. His racist attitude that like, and like
totally,
it's just, it's fucking wild, man.
And that's like that's like I'm saying, where it's like a really good example of what a Twilight Zone episode could be about, because there's other episodes like where this character is a piece of shit for this reason, and then this happens to him in episode. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they kind of like Goosebumps kind of did the same thing, where it's like in the episode these characters are going to get their comeuppance in some sort of way for whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's probably safe to say that something like the Twilight Zone influenced like
of course,
like things like Goosebumps later on, like that, because you're right, like it does take that
moral
style.
Stories, what I mean?
And anyway, it's a really great segment to start out with. Because you're right, it sets the kind of a good tone for like you are watching Twilight Zone, like
totally, And then this, the second segment is a little more like fantasy, like fantastical, where Scatman Crothers is in it, and he plays this character named Mr. Bloom that goes to this retirement home, and once he listens to the people there, reminisce about their youth, this, that, the next thing, and he's kind of explaining to them that even though they're older, they don't necessarily need to be. He wants them to play kick the can that night. One of them one of the older folks objects and stays asleep. And that night they all go out and play kick the can, and they turn into childhood versions of themselves.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty fucking cool. Could you imagine that, man? Like,
right?
Just like, now I'm little Jared all of a sudden running around.
It's a really cool concept, because you do get it's one of those things where when you're a kid, I know I'm guilty of it. I can't wait to grow up. And then you grow up and you're like, what the fuck?
Didn't appreciate. Yeah, dude, absolutely. And so, like, you know, the idea of being able to recapture a little bit of that energy in that moment, I think every adult can identify with that sentiment, you know. And this is the segment that Steven Spielberg's, I believe.
Yes.
And it's, you know, I think it makes sense. I didn't expect him to do something too spooky, you know what I mean?
Good point.
But yeah, he did just hire Tobe Hooper to do it.
Wow.
But you know, it's a really great, like, almost wholesome-esque segment, you know, like
totally.
Yeah. So I think it's a good one.
You can't go wrong with Scatman Crothers either, and it's a really cute segment too. Just these, you know, because when they turn into kids, you can tell that they, in their older forms, that they encompass some of the qualities they had when they were younger. Mm-hmm. And I hope that I'm the same way when I get that old. And I also hope that when I get old, that I can kick a can and become a kid again for a night, because that'd be a blast. I wish now I could be a kid again for a day and just go fucking skateboard all day with not a care in the world. You know what I mean?
Dude, I know, man. Those fucking days. But yeah, I'd say that honestly, because it's like, this is probably my second favorite segment in the lineup.
Yeah, the next one is probably my favorite, and this is where we get super nutty. Is Joe Dante's segment, and there's been like a Simpsons episode that was like an homage to this, but it's essentially, you know, we get introduced to this little kid, Anthony, who this lady at a diner like accidentally runs over his bike, gives him a ride home. We get introduced to who we think is his family, but we learn throughout that Anthony has these powers, you know. And we learned that this family that he's living with isn't his real family, that these are people that he, you know, maybe he murdered his parents, whatever the case may be, but essentially they're held captive there. But the reason he treats them poorly is because they treat him poorly. But there's like a really great shot with this rabbit getting pulled out of a hat. That's one of the most iconic shots from the movie. And it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, it's like you go from like that kind of wholesome segment to this, which does, like you said, just like it just flips you right into like, you think you know where you're going with this Twilight Zone, you know, anthology, but then no. Like you have one of the and this is a classic Twilight Zone kind of thing. Like every now and then you just get an episode that goes a little harder. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think though this like is disarming because at first you're like following, you know, a kid and stuff like that. You know, it like once you get to things like the rabbit, it gets like a little like, oh, what's going on?
I also really like the actor Kevin McCarthy that plays one of the uncles in this segment. Like he just has the most hilarious facial expressions, and just the way he acts in this role is great. There's also like the creepy, like the sister whose mouth is like non-existent, like you know what I mean? Yeah. There's also the cool scene where one of them gets thrown into the television and is eaten by a cartoon monster. Like he has some cool, you know, wherever, and it's also like you don't know where his powers came from or why he has these powers, but those are some pretty fucking cool powers.
It's pretty fucking wild. He seems to just be able to manipulate whatever, you know. And talking about this segment, it gives me these really heavy reminders of elements of WandaVision. You know, like where it's like this person is controlling these people in his like with these powers, like he, you know, just plucks them at random, makes them do like live a normal life around him or like pretend to be friends with them. You know, it's just like it's just really interesting. I don't know why. I was just like, you were describing it and I was just like, God damn,
I can see
this sounds kind of wild. Like anyway, but yeah, you're right. There's some like really cool visuals. The televisions are really cool. The television kill's a really cool one, you know, being eaten by the cartoon monster. And yeah, like I would expect nothing less from Joe Dante when like trying to pull off like a segment like, you know, like this, handing him this script and being like, what are you going to do with it, Joe? Like,
oh yeah.
You know, had to have been fun.
I also really like the way it ends too, because like we see him use these powers in a bad way, but at the when it comes to the ending, you kind of get this feeling that everyone that's been around him has been afraid of him because he has these powers, and all he wants is to get some love. You know what I mean? And this character, you know, offers to be his teacher and help him find new uses for his power. There's this really cool shot where they get in the car and leave, and they're like driving through like this like barren like part of town, and as they're driving, like all these meadows start filling with flowers. It's just a really cool visual to end the segment in.
And like that's kind of the fun dichotomy of the episode, right? Like you go through some rough shit and then like you end on this like hopeful note.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, you know what I mean? Where maybe he doesn't have to use his power, you know what I mean? Like maybe he doesn't have, people don't need to be afraid of him anymore. He can, you know what I mean? It's just a cool way to end it, where it could have ended with him just brutally killing anybody in some like gnarly way, but
yeah. You know, it's like what I tell people, you know, use that brain for good. Mm-hmm. Use your powers for good, kid.
Right.
But and then what?
So the fourth segment is, you know, if you know anything about
the Zone,
Twilight Zone, one of the most iconic episodes from the original run is, the Terror at 20,000 feet, you know, William Shatner was in the original. And this one, I'm glad they updated it, because whoever was in that Moss Man suit for the original just does not hold up well. But, you know, it's just a story about this guy that's on a plane who's having a panic attack because he doesn't like fly. There's a big storm going on, and he sees what he believes to be a monster on the wing, and no one else believes him. Yep. You know, the plane ends up, you know, they make it to the land, and then they see that the wing looks like it's been scratched and destroyed by something, but they're not sure, you know, if there really was a monster or not. So it's a good retelling of like one of the more iconic episodes. And they also like I know that they like redid that episode again for the Jordan Peele reboot, but
yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of a classic. I think, you know, like you said, Twilight Zone and storyline. But yeah, this was George Miller's, and it was like you said, I think it's just a really good reworking of that episode. And shout outs again to the Simpsons. They did a segment, Treehouse of Horror segment, where it's like Bart's on the bus. And like he sees like a gremlin fucking with the wheel. It's such a good segment too.
It is a good segment. Treehouse of Horror.
But it's, you know, the thing that I want to take away from this segment is that it really shows and continues to show a lasting impact. All of this work, you know, this is all paying homage to the original, you know, and then even further down the line, you just have more and more and more. And so like this, you know, episode, or this segment, you know, Terror at 20,000. It's just like Twilight Zone always helped to like establish a way to ease into science fiction or horror.
Totally.
You know, and this is a good segment to emphasize that, because, you know, it has these like monster elements. It has, you know, the psychological terror elements, and like, it's just, I think like what's cool about the Twilight Zone movie is that overall it just like hits all the notes that you as a viewer like saw in like the run of Twilight Zone.
I would agree. Yeah. It's also got two pretty cool, like the wraparound segments with Dan Aykroyd are entertaining too, which is, as a whole, I think every segment, even the Kick the Can, which is a little more lighthearted, it's still a good segment. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I agree. And you know, so I'm going to transition into another 1983 pick on my end. Because it kind of falls in line. Like Twilight Zone was good right before this, because Something Wicked This Way Comes is...
So real quick, I have never seen this movie. All I know is that it's based on a Ray Bradbury book.
Yeah. It's definitely like, so I'm going to say this, for like all the movies that we talk about, this is probably the softest movie.
Okay.
It's meant...
It's like a Walt Disney production, right?
Yeah, it's like PG or something like that. But I just got to shout out my old man. One of the very few things that me and him ever like linked up on and locked in on were movies. And when we were kids, he showed us this movie like every Halloween season.
Oh, okay.
We had a handful of movies that we always liked to watch. And this one, when he first showed it to me, spooked me the fuck out because
it sounds like a creepy premise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It basically follows a couple of kids and you see like a carnival roll into town.
Mm-hmm. Like overnight, just overnight,
just
right?
Overnight.
Kind of just pops up.
Yeah. And so like things are kind of like, the setting is so creepy, there's
it's totally
it's like fall, wind's always blowing. Like the opening is like, the sequence where like a dude's like putting up this like, weather vane, and it's like it can, he catches like a lightning bolt, and gets zapped or whatever. And anyway, so you get this like atmospheric spooky feel from this movie, and it definitely is a movie that's meant to be from like a kid's perspective, seeing these things happen, and like how as this kid witnessing these things, solving these things, so on and so forth. And that's like that, like we said, that kind of more toned down element of the movie.
I like movies like that though, like kind of like Roald Dahl's The Witches, what I mean?
Definitely. So, it's entertaining, and as an adult, it's entertaining. As a kid, it's spooky. And
totally.
Anyway, so you see this carnival roll into town overnight, and slowly, like, people kind of go missing. Some weird things start happening. The person, what's the person? The main like ringleader or whatever.
Like Mr. Dark. I'm sorry, I just pulled up a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, you're good. He just is. Oh God, his presence is just like sinister, like from the get-go, and like always throughout the movie. And that's like because that the kid sees it, and then the kid locks on to it, but nobody else sees it. Nobody else like is convinced that this is not a fishy situation. So
of course,
it's just kind of one of those sort of movies. But what's cool is that there's this really crazy mirrors, like Hall of Mirrors sequence, which for me, like I mean, like y'all listening, you'll probably remember like going through that fun house at the carnival, and the Hall of Mirrors was always like equally frustrating and fucking terrifying to me because I get claustrophobic so fast, and the second I can't start finding my way out of that thing, I'm like, oh shit, and
it's kind of creepy as a kid.
Yeah. And there's this whole sequence in there, and it kind of has this bigger story. Like I want to liken it to how like the slow witch story kind of unfolds in Suspiria. It's
totally
by the end you're sort of like, oh shit, there's powers like happening, there's like actual like really supernatural shit. That's kind of what happens with this movie. Like, finally unfolds, and at the end, the kid's fighting like something referred to as the dust witch, and like, it's just cool. And like the thing I love about it is not only the nostalgia I have attached to this movie, but like I said, like the overall tone of the movie really grips you and locks you in, if you ask me. And
it just sounds like a cool setting, and everything about it sounds right up my alley.
Like it's a fun, like I said, it's a good watch either way, adult or kid, if you ask me. So I just wanted to shout it out because 1983 gave us that one. And
it's one of those, it's honestly, I've been a lifelong reader. That's always been a book that I've wanted to seek out and read. And unfortunately, I just still haven't. Maybe this will be a good reminder that I need to go pick it up. But I know it's one of those works that has influenced many of people in the horror community, whether it be authors or directors. I know that it's one of those, and you can tell, you know what I mean? That's just such an awesome concept.
Yeah, it really is. Cause like, you get disarmed by the innocence of like following a kid. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But then you get this tone that's really like really has weight to it, and you know the things that unfold, you know, are sinister, and so you're just sort of like I don't know, you get disarmed right away, and then you get kind of like locked into this like vibe that just you ride out for the rest of the movie. So it's I might have to go check it out. We'd have to watch. We should watch it next time we're together or something. Find a copy.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be fun. But yeah, you know, there's also like a handful of like random other, you know, 83 movies. You already shouted out Sledgehammer, I believe, didn't you? But
yes.
You know, there's just like this hodgepodge, you know, like the Frightmare, Grizzly 2. When I was looking through all these 80s movies, I was like, I need to see what Grizzly 1 is, because Grizzly
it's about a killer bear.
Yeah. Shocker.
Right.
The jaws of the forest. You know,
there's also like, this really, I can't believe they made a second one. That's
and
great.
It had and 83 gave us Psycho 2, which is
it's a solid sequel.
Yeah, like I and that's the thing I wanted to point out, that like the following Psycho movies are kind of interesting, if you ask me.
It's just weird how late it came, and Anthony Perkins reprised that role, and it was like they literally directed it like a week after directing Psycho.
Yeah, that was the weird vibe, and you know, just strange. But what else we got for 83? There's
this outrageous like lower budget movie called Mountaintop Motel Massacre, which is as ridiculous as the title suggests. There's also a good Italian horror movie called A Blade in the Dark, which is very entertaining. But the last movie that I want to talk about in depth in 1983 is called Sleepaway Camp, which obviously, you know, coming off the craze of movies like Friday the 13th, you know, The Burning, Madman, stuff like that. But it's not your typical like crazy guy at a summer campus killing people. It's directed by Robert Hildstick, who has only directed 2 films. He directed this, and then in 2003 he directed like because there's multiple sequels that came after this that it's all like Angela as when she's older, and they're all played by Bruce Springsteen's sister, actually, and they're fantastic. But in 2003 he directed it's called Return to Sleepaway, or I think maybe it wasn't 2003, it was in the 2000s, but he directed like essentially like a sequel to his own movie, or kind of like a reimagining. But Sleepaway Camp is a fantastic movie with and I don't know how much other movies she starred in, but Felissa Rose is like a horror icon for this role alone, because it does have one of the most like crazy shock endings that has happened in a movie that's still talked about to this day. But it is just the basic premise of, you know, it opens with this scene of these 2 kids, Angela and Peter, and their dad gets killed by speedboat.
Speedboat death.
And it looks like Angela's the only one left alive, like her brother may have died too. But we learn, you know, we learn at the end through this flashback that Angela was the one that died in the accident, and that their Aunt Martha took custody of Peter, who she raised as a girl. So there's this awesome shot. I'm leaping to the end before we talk about the rest of the movie, but there's just this lasting shot at the end of the movie where you see Angela naked, holding a severed head, and she has a penis, and you realize that was like the twist. But it sticks
like,
with you.
It literally was. You just never saw it happening.
Coming. No.
Yeah, it just, and so it was just. That's why it's just one of those, like, I don't know, man. It just holds it. It will always have that like grip on people. You know what I mean? That ending.
But yeah. But it is like it's just a cool setting. anything that has to do with stuff. Like I never went to a summer camp when I wish, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I never did either. I always wanted to for some, it seemed appealing.
Yeah, and there's just something about I like movies in that setting. They're because they have this air of like what's the word I'm looking for? Of innocence to it, or kids pulling pranks and dicking off and running out and smoking and hooking up and all these different things.
You're literally just there to have fun, like, you know what I mean? And
there's one. Yeah, exactly. Then all these murders happen. That's what I'm saying. Well, this one's different where, we learn obviously at the end that Angela was the one killing all these, but you don't know that because she's shown as just this quiet, insecure.
Just sort of like, introvert, I'd say. Right?
Totally. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah.
and you're right. Like you just don't ever suspect her through the movie, you know? Which I don't know, man. It's a good one. Like I think I feel like Sleepaway Camp, like for somebody that doesn't care, they're probably just like, oh yeah, this is like got to be just like a Friday the 13th knockoff,
rip off, right?
You know what I mean? But I wouldn't call it that. It's like it's influenced. Without Friday the 13th kicking in that door, like you wouldn't be able to have this movie. But this is not that movie, you know?
No,
what I mean?
It's so different.
Yeah.
There's also some creative fucking like. One of the ones that always sticks out to me is like it's the first like death that happens or actually he doesn't die. Like I'm sure he might have died from his injuries, but there's this like really creepy cook that actually attempts to like molest Angela in the pantry, and he gets shoved into a fucking pot of boiling water, which would be brutal. There's also a kill where a character gets a beehive dropped on them while they're trapped in a fucking bathroom stall.
But you have that like awesome shot of that body later on with like covered in welts. Dude. It's brutal looking. Yeah.
Fucking there's some good practical effects in this movie.
Definitely.
For sure. Most definitely. There's also like a curling iron death. Someone, there's a pillow smothering. There's just a lot of good kills. Yeah. But like I said, it's really the fucking shock ending that people, that when you talk about iconic endings like that, this is up in that echelon. And I think for a lot of times people tried to kind of not like mimic it, but come up with their own way of doing so. But this one is just, like I said, it can never be recreated.
No.
And I'm glad it hasn't. It's a great movie. And I think it's one of those movies that unfortunately a lot of people haven't seen. Because like you said, they probably just associate it with, oh, this is just another fucking Friday the 13th ripoff. But that's a disservice to the movie.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. It's just, I think out of like a lot of the movies that came out in 1983, this is probably one of them that it should be like required viewing for a horror fan.
Completely.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean.
Do you have any other like shout outs, last minute 83 shout outs?
No.
I think we covered quite a bit out of there.
Yeah, we didn't cover everything, but we hit a good stroke.
Yeah. There's definitely more to dig into. Maybe just listen to our episode on Sledgehammer. Don't watch the movie, but
spare yourself, an hour and 20 minutes of your life. Just, I guess our episode's probably that long too, but I think
it's a better way.
I think it's more entertaining.
Definitely. Well, that just takes me right in. I have two movies set aside from 1984.
Correct.
And I just want to jump into one of them because we mentioned, we invoked the name earlier, Joe Dante.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God.
With a great like pinnacle dark comedy horror movie, Gremlins, 1984. It is such a fucking fun movie. Like
it is.
We talk a lot, or at least I know it's something I beat over the head, but we both appreciate when a movie establishes a tone really early on. And I think this is one of those, like, you know, out the gate, you get like the tone, like you get this really mysterious like moment in the beginning where traveling salesman buys mysterious creature.
Right.
And then you immediately go to the town that the setting will be in, and you get introduced to like side characters, and you get that's like kind of like the sleepy town, you know, the holidays, and you know, it builds.
Yeah.
It doesn't like I just say like, it like builds you into this like world where once shit goes crazy, like it's just so funny to watch it unfold throughout that world.
Totally.
Because you know,
it takes a little bit to get there, like
it does,
but it's bonkers when it does. And so, and real quick before you continue with what you're saying, in the same way that Die Hard could be associated as a Christmas movie, this too.
Definitely. This is always like one of mine. I have like you know, like any quirky individual, I suppose you probably have a weird list of holiday movies, but Gremlins and Batman Returns are always on mine.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
But you basically, you know, like, so you follow Billy, the main character, as he is gifted from his father this creature called a mogwai, and mogwais are fucking adorable, and he names his Gizmo, and
it's crazy to this day like how iconic that character still is, because there was like recently these like Mountain Dew commercials with Gizmo in it, so
really
he stood the test of time as like a cultural icon. That's
crazy. That's awesome. And eventually, you know, like you learn like some loose rules about
well, I wouldn't say they're loose.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I guess no, you're right. He doesn't take them as seriously as he should, I suppose.
There you go.
Because what eventually happens is that Gizmo spawns other mogwai, like in this in this crazy sequence where like he just launches these fur balls out of his back. And they all have different personalities.
Totally. That's what's so cool about it.
Exactly, man. Like they really give these creatures individual identities.
And when they turn into the full-blown Gremlins, even more so.
Yeah. And you know, once they get into some grub and after midnight and turn into these fucking gnarly gremlins, like the cocoons are even fucking crazy. Dude. Like that's the thing. And like one of the great things about this is that even though it's kind of like I said, sort of like that, you know, it's a dark comedy horror movie, it has some really, like, the creatures look awesome.
Amazing.
So awesome. And so, you know, they turn into gremlins, and these gremlins are fucking evil, and you know, they start just tearing shit up, and you have some great gremlin deaths in this movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
Some of the most iconic happen in the kitchen at Billy's house, you know, where it's like the fucking gremlin in the microwave.
Yeah.
The fucking
blender.
The gremlin in the blender, man. Like, and that's what I mean, where it's like, you know, you just start seeing what's cool and I think identifiable about this movie is that you start seeing these creatures just like get into a house, and then they get out of the house and they get into the neighborhood, and then they get out of the neighborhood and they get into town. And you know,
there's a movie later in Joe Dante's filmography, Small Soldiers, which kind of has the same feel to this, but this is more like amped up. But yeah, they fucking wreak havoc on this fucking town.
Dude, they tear this fucking town up.
And it's a cool, like you said, it's such a cool world to be plopped into.
Oh, definitely. You know, you have, oh God, who's the guy that plays the snowplow driver in this movie?
Miller.
Dick fucking Miller, dude. Dude, his character's so fucking,
he's amazing.
So fucking great. There's that whole moment where, what's his name? Spike or whatever. It's fucking the leader of the Gremlins is. When he gets access. Stripe, when he gets access to the pool and just starts spawning
the lighting in that,
And yeah, it's such a cool
It's a beautiful
scene,
scene. Yeah.
Yeah, the lighting is fucking incredible. Like everything is just looks so awesome. Like, and there's like, you know, the classic scene where they're all in the theater.
Oh my God.
Watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Like you said, they just all have, there's some of them that have their own identities, like, and they even
some
like
are eating popcorn, some are like jeering at other people. Like
there's like pop culture reference too, where one is like the Flasher, and they do even more of that in the sequel, where it's like even more nuttier. But
yeah,
they had so much fun fucking making this movie.
Oh God, yeah, dude, they had to have. I just like overall, this is just, I feel like this is for like the adult horror fan. Like you can show this to like a niece or nephew. You can show this to a kid if you have one, like whatever. Like, you know, it's a branch into horror for some people, I think, because you get those great creature moments. You get some awesome, like gruesome gremlin deaths. You get, you know,
totally.
But it's all, you know, sort of fun,
lighthearted and fun, even though there are deaths. And there's like the crazy scene where the old neighbor gets launched out of her fucking window.
This is so fucking great, man. But yeah,
it's also got a great cast too, you know. We've got a really young Corey Feldman in it. Zach Galligan's great. Phoebe Cates, who's beautiful, is in it. Judge Reinhold plays a small character. He's always smarmy.
Right.
Yeah.
Fucking Judge Reinhold popped up in there. Even what's his fucking name? Corey Feldman.
Yeah,
he's in there.
Did you know who does the voice of Gizmo?
No. Who does it?
Howie Mandel.
No way. Howie Mandel. That's so random.
It's just so cool too. Like another pop culture reference where Gizmo, you know, puts on the bandana like Rambo and goes to war with the. Oh yeah. Man, it does, like you said, it hits all those notes. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just one of those great movies that has different. It's not just, it couldn't just fit into one genre. Like it has multiple. Oh yeah. And I think that's why, like, it's one of those movies that just like will always transcend, you know? And that actually kind of takes me into the next 1984 pick that I have. You want to jump into the next one? Yeah. I because sort of like Gremlins, you create this movie creates an iconic character that transcends its medium, that goes, that will go forever. You know what I mean? Totally. We're talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, motherfuckers. Like we're talking about the movie that gifted the world Freddy Krueger. Like right. Like this movie, I mean, and people have talked about it to death, but very warranted. Like this movie, it brings a different type of like menacing killer. You know, there's supernatural elements to this movie. It's so creative. There's some like awesome death scenes. There's the one of the most menacing yet entertaining killers that I think that has been like brought to screen. You know, this movie is well deserves the like pinnacle it's of course it does in horror movie history. But one of the crazy things to me though, like, and this isn't so much how to do with the movie, but just the fact that Wes Craven came out with this in the 80s and, you know, propelled his career to the next level. But then the fact that in the 90s he was able to like reestablish his career and create another massive franchise in Scream, I'll never forget that fact that he was able to create two of the biggest horror franchises and two of the biggest names in horror on his own. That's impressive. But anyway, no, it's true, man. It's true. Like horror movies wouldn't be the same without Wes Craven. Completely. You know? Like and that just alone like is, I don't know, like that's fucking impressive. But this movie also has like a pretty solid cast. Heather Langenkamp stars as Nancy.
You know, you obviously have Johnny Depp as Glenn. That was
first
like
movie.
That's what like really roped, I think, people in, because you know everybody's like,
and he has a great
21 Jump Street. He does. And then of course Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, my God.
And you know, like,
I wonder if he knew when he took that role that we've mentioned this many other times with other things, but who would have known when he took that role how pivotal it would have been?
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
You know, I was watching. I started watching Eli Roth's like horror history. And,
I love that series. Yeah,
they're interviewing Robert Englund, and he talks about how at that point when he was like getting like trying to like absorb some like character tonality for this role, he would be on set and he would get like really like angry at the fact that like he was surrounded by all these young hot like actors and actresses who were like up and coming and famous and like in their prime. And then like, you know, he's just had like not a very great career. He's done stuff, but he's never had like a launching moment in his career. And he's just there, and he just like he said that he used that energy to like turn it into like that malicious intent of like seeking out these kids, you know, and as Freddy Krueger.
Awesome.
And I was like, that's such a cool fucking thing. Like to like just like absorb that, redirect that energy into your character. Like, and that's what you get, dude. He's unrelenting in this movie, and he just and that's one of the things that you get to love about Freddy.
Even when he's joking,
he just toys with people, and oh man, it's just creepy.
That's the one thing, you know, I was always more of a Friday the 13th fan, but I think that Freddy is like such a creative, you know, he's not just this guy with a sword hacking people up. Like, he's got a backstory. He's just so creative. It's such a cool fucking concept too.
Oh yeah. And like the idea that he, you know, he inhabits your dreams. And so you know,
it's a terrifying thought.
Exactly. Like if you can't sleep, like your ultimate safe spot, you know, right. Like you're totally compromised, and that's the feeling you get for these kids, you know, as it goes on, is that you know they get sleep deprived, they're
paranoid,
paranoid, and like they've lost their, you know, their edge, and they get picked off in some really glorious ways. You know, I just think that, like, you know, I feel like a lot of people have talked about this movie, so I want to like mention it. I wanted to talk about Robert Englund. I wanted to mention that Robert Englund thing, but I really just think it's something we had to mention.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it cemented its status. You know what I mean? And then it's all, speaking of that, and we've mentioned this about other movies. I think one other time we mentioned this about a movie, but in last year, this film was the National Film Registry, the Library of Congress. What I'm trying to say, it's deemed as a culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant film, which is crazy that a horror film. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
yeah, it's a classic. You can't go wrong. And it spawned, you know, a fucking long-standing franchise, crossovers, and just like Jason did, he has transcended pop culture. He's been in video games. He's been on commercials. He's been in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, he's been in like, you know, comics and stuff, and
who would have thought?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like it like to the point where, you know, eventually the series gets so self-aware that, like, you know, they're like, there's the new Nightmare where, you know, it's,
oh man, yeah,
it's, you know, you convinced me to rewatch that in a different light, and
I love that movie.
I fucking loved it. Like you know, but it's like, it's so self-aware at that point that it's like, you know, Robert Englund's, you know, like absorbing all the enjoyment of being Freddy and stuff. It's just such a storied fucking series, you know. So I just wanted to shout it out because, you know, make sure that we talked a little bit about it because it deserves that space. But do you have any any just shout outs from 1984?
Yeah, I have quite a few. So you know, Silent Night, Deadly Night, which we've obviously done an episode about. There's a couple Stephen King, we had Firestarter and Children of the Corn in '84. Toxic Avenger came out in '84. I mentioned my traumatic story about that movie recently.
Oh man, Toxic.
Chud came out, aka Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers, which is a really cool movie.
Chud.
One of my favorite. We just talked about Freddy, and I will talk about Jason for a second, but one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies, Part 4, The Final Chapter. Corey Feldman in that as well. It's a fantastic movie, and at the time they were planning on that being the last one, and if it would have been the last one, it would have been a hell of a fucking way to go out. Last shout out, Brady. What's that?
I was gonna say, do you think? I mean, it's great that they continued it, but
totally.
Do you think it will? Would horror be the same if they left it there?
That's a really good question.
You know what I mean? Because Jason, I like Freddy. Jason is before Freddy, Jason started establishing the long-standing iconic, imagery of what a slasher can be, or how a killer can be in pop culture, and
it's a good question. Anyway. I don't think he would have laid dormant for long, but I'm glad that they continued. It's a fantastic movie. But last shout out of 1984, it's more of a an obscure movie, and it's a really weird one. It's called Fatal Games, aka Olympic Nightmare, and it's about this this high school gymnastics team that's picked off by a killer using armed with a javelin. It's really weird.
What? I've never seen this fucking movie. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, we should do it. We should do it for an episode here in the future. I think it would make for a good episode.
I'm diggity.
But jumping into 1985, first movie I want to talk about is another. I mentioned earlier we're going to talk about another anthology. And in the last episode, I talked about an anthology that Stephen King was attached to called, obviously, Creepshow. Mm-hmm. But 1985's Cat's Eye. It's, Stephen King, there's 3 segments in it. One of them is new to the movie that he wrote, and 2 of them are short stories from a collection of short stories of his called Night Shift. And the movie is directed by Louis Teague, who he directed he directed Cujo, and he's directed a bunch of other random shit. But it's a really good horror anthology with the name is called Cat's Eye because throughout the movie there's this presence of a traveling cat that doesn't play very significant roles in the first one, but in the third one he's one of the main one of the main characters. But they're all pretty good stories, and there's some Drew Barrymore's in it as a kid. James Woods is in this one as well.
Yeah.
Charles S. Dutton is in it, and then Mike Starr, who is most known for playing for being in Dumb and Dumber. He plays. I'm trying to think of the character's name. He plays the main male. Why can't I think of his name? But he plays.
Oh my god, dude! This is a really bad time to blank on Dumb and Dumber.
The henchman. God damn it,
dude! The guy they feed the spicy burger to. I know every moment of that movie, but I cannot think of his fucking name right now.
It's gonna piss me off. Now I have to look it up because
I was gonna say, dude.
Mental. Yeah. Joe Mentalino, but they call him Mental.
Joe Mentalino.
Yeah. But yeah, he's hilarious. Mike Starr, he's a good character actor. But yeah, so Cat's Eye. The first segment is called Quitters Inc. and the short story is really good. It's a really cool concept. It's basically this guy that's trying to quit smoking. Whatever he's done hasn't worked, so he goes to this clinic called Quitters Inc. that has a 100% success rate, and he comes to learn that they have weird methods of getting you to quit. If you start the program and you get caught smoking, there's going to be bad things that happen. At one point, his wife gets put in this box and shocked, It's alluded to that if he would have continued to smoke, his wife could have possibly been raped, or his daughter could have been put in the box, or his family could have been killed.
Yeah,
it's like a creepy. There's like this sequence where, like the night that he had like went to Quitter's Inc., he's at his house and he's getting ready to smoke, and he notices a pair of feet that are hiding in his closet.
Yeah, dude, like they're just like around waiting, like
yeah,
you know what I mean?
The traffic jam sequence.
It's nuts, dude. But just like like the whole like electric shock box and the culmination, like where it's like, you know, what's it like? Somebody has like gets like threatened further for like the end of the movie, right? It's
because down the line he quits smoking, but then he's gained some weight. That's right. He wants to quit weight, and you give him pills, and they joke about if he keeps gaining weight, they're going to cut his wife's finger off. And they're shown at like a dinner date, and when they're at the dinner with like this other group of people, he notices that one of the guys, his wife, his finger is cut off.
Yeah, dude, that's right. It's like
there's also this great shot in the movie where he's having this like visual of a party, and there's this just like life-size box of cigarettes with human legs walking down the stairs. It's a cool fucking visual.
Oh my gosh, dude, yeah. Yeah, it's a fucking like it's probably one of my like it's probably my favorite segment, just because it's like weird and it's a great like dive into like the movie, you know, and
it's also a cool concept.
Yeah, it really is. But there's two. What are the other two segments? We got
the second one is based on another short story from the same collection. It's called The Ledge, and it's basically about basically about this retired tennis player who, has a relationship with this woman, but this woman is married to someone else, and this someone else happens to be a casino owner and a crime boss. He knows about it. He lures said tennis player to his apartment, and basically like blackmails him into playing this like dangerous game. He explains that he's planted drugs in his trunk, so if he doesn't play along, he's going to get arrested for that. He says that if he can walk around this small little ledge that's around the whole outside of his like penthouse apartment, that he will get a divorce from his wife and he can have her. They do a really good job of showing how terrifying this whole ordeal would be, because you're like however many 20, 30 stories up. But while he's on the ledge, you know, the character Kressner fucks with him with a horn. At one point, he tries blasting him with a hose. There's like pigeons he has to contend with.
Could you imagine, dude?
Oh. No, I could not. That's what I think about King's work, is he could, in the short stories, is really, really good. Is you could take something like as simple as that and make it nerve-wracking.
Oh, you fucking hell yeah, dude. Like, because you can just picture that. Like, you can picture that jump scare that you'll get if somebody just like creeps up behind you and like blows an air horn or something, you know?
Right. And it's like a matter of life and death. So he ends up making it. He makes it, and you know, Kressner goes to honor his bet, gives him this bag of cash, but the fucking girlfriend's dead head rolls out. And it has one of those great like comeuppance endings where he turns the table, he overpowers Kressner and his henchmen, and makes Kressner do the same thing that he just did. But Kressner doesn't have the same luck, and he falls to his death.
Bom, bom.
It's a cool segment. It's a really cool segment.
It is, man. And I always love it when you use the word comeuppance, but you're right. It has a great little flip ending there, you know?
Yeah. And then the third one is more fantastical, and it's It's essentially about this little girl, and the cat from the other two segments that like made its way through the segments is now like makes its way to this house. This little girl takes it in. The parents aren't like necessarily happy with the cat, but the cat ends up fending off this troll that had been living in their house, and the way that the cat like kills the troll, knocking it into a fan, and it gets obliterated. It's just a really cool, fantastical segment to end the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's interesting that, I'm glad that like they saved this segment for like, the end, really.
Totally.
That had to have been a purposeful one, because it included like, naming the cat and all that, so it kind of like gives you this like final, like, this is where like, we stop. But yeah, like the whole troll like aspect, like when that whole thing comes into play, you're just sort of like, oh, I don't know. It just seems like here's the fantasy. Like, you're just like, it's kind of, I don't know. All three of them are just like really fun for different reasons, I guess. But
of course,
like you said, I think this one is like the most, just sort of like,
because even though Quitters Inc. goes to extremes, it's more grounded in reality, and so is The Ledge, where this one is obviously, not. So
yeah, but
yeah, all around it's a good anthology. I don't think any of them lag. Keeps a good pace. I just love a good anthology too.
Dude, you do, man. You do. That's what I've been noticing throughout this. Like, you really like the anthologies, which is great, because that's the fun thing about an anthology, is that you just get, in a way, you get a little bit of like more bang for your buck. You can get like a few different cool like types of segments, especially ones with like different directors on different segments, because then you get like different cinematography and shit. And so
it just reminds me of reading a good book of short stories, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But before we jump into your next pick, I want to just do a couple of 85 shout outs really quick. So another Friday the 13th movie, The New Beginning, which as we learn at the end of the movie, it isn't Jason that's the killer. It's this vengeful paramedic. It's a good movie. Ghoulies, which I like. Ghoulies 2. Ghoulies 2 I like more, and I feel like these would make good episodes too, but Ghoulies is a good one. Couple sequels. Howling 2. Your Sister is a Werewolf, and then The Hills Have Eyes 2.
I love the Howling 2's title. Just right. Yeah, Your Sister is a Werewolf.
No shit.
But yeah,
and I'll do some more shout outs
too.
later, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and then we all, like one of them that I wanted to shout out for 85 was it's a Stephen King. It's Silver Bullet.
Oh yeah,
with Gary Busey. I'm a sucker for werewolf,
totally.
Movies. So I thought that was solid. And we also got to mention the episode we did with, about Life Force that came out. Oh yeah.
Also, The Stuff came out, which was like our second episode ever, and it's a classic. Oh yeah. There's actually a third movie that we talked about this year that we just cannot escape. We're going on a fall break. Yeah, the Mutilator came out in 85.
Motherfucking Mutilator, dude. The fall break will live on forever. But
I think I think the next movie you're going to talk about is a sequel, right?
It is. So it's technically the third movie.
Oh, that's right. That's
in
right.
the line. And it's 1985's Day of the Dead.
Okay.
So Day of the Dead, dude, I gotta say, man, like after having recently rewatched this, it just reminded me of how much I fucking love Romero. Like the pairing specifically of like Romero and Savini, you know what I mean? Like, through Dawn of the Dead and into Day of the Dead, you just get such a unique world.
It's true. It's true.
And Savini's work on this movie, Day of the Dead, cannot be understated, because you have a fairly big cast, not nearly as many extras probably to work with as Day of the Dead or as Dawn of the Dead, but Day of the Dead you have
that's right.
You start out with like a group of people who are flying in a helicopter, and they're trying to find any survivors, and you get the establishment of the world. It's like the zombies have been around for a while now. The streets that they see are all desolate. They eventually fly back to their sort of home base, where you will meet like a larger grouping of the cast, where you find out that there's multiple scientists at this facility, as well as multiple military personnel, and then like the pilot and the pilot's like assistant or whatever the guy is, mechanic or whatever he is, and basically like, it's just everything about this movie just feels like it's closing in, like the end is closing in on you, because you get, like there's zombies at their gate, and they keep referencing that there's just more of them, and when they are in the base together in their bunker, which is pretty secure, right, you start discovering like a different kind of terror. And this is where Romero really does a great job of flipping it from like you're afraid of the zombies to like you're afraid of your fellow humans. You know what I mean? Yes. And that's like one of the ultimate aspects of zombie movies I think Romero gave us, was that you see it in all three of the movies in this series, but in here it just really solidifies, I think,
where sometimes the people that are around you are more terrifying than whatever other threat, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because the most menacing things about this are, like I can't remember what rank he is, but the military man that's in charge, he just eventually he snaps, and he starts demanding that people sit down and listen to his meeting at gunpoint, and he's threatening to kill people. And eventually he does just take out a scientist that he's holding hostage. But there's some really awesome special effects in this movie that are incredible. The makeup's incredible in this movie. Because of course you get some classic, Romero, Savini, slow moving zombies. They all have different kind of grotesque bits out of them. But one of my favorite gross shots in this whole movie is you're going to the scientist that they refer to as Frankenstein. You're in his lab. Okay. And he's unveiling some of the experiments that he's been working on, and two of them are really fucking gnarly. One is like this zombie who's strapped down, and he's basically has his chest ripped open, and the doctor is basically explaining that he's pulled every vital organ out of this of this zombie, and it's still functioning. And it's just a really gnarly shot. And then even later on in that same scene, that zombie kind of gets up a little bit, and as it's turning over, all of its insides just come plopping out of its empty cavity, and it's just splattering onto the ground, and it's such a fucking grody shot. It's awesome. And then even further, you find that he's been this is what I mean, where it's the human terror is real, where not only is the military guys getting more aggressive and getting crazier, this your chief scientist, the guy you're supposed to be who's supposed to be solving this fucking crisis, is all of a sudden experimenting on human brains and stuff like that, recently deceased soldiers and stuff, or and there's a shot where he unveils his body, and the body is all there, but the head, the skull is completely removed, but the brain is still attached to its spinal cord, and he's probing it and making the arms move, and it's just such a so cool. The makeup job on that and the effects on that are just insane to me.
It's another cool thing, a little about this movie, is that one of the people working under Tom Savini in this movie was Greg Nicotero, who went on to help make the Walking Dead, the TV show him and Robert Kurtzman made. But he that was his first major job, was working on that. And so it's cool that he went on to create his own zombie thing. I don't know. I think that's interesting.
No, it's hella cool. Because he was right there learning. Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. The OG zombie techniques, and that's a cool connect. I never realized that.
I know that people sometimes when you talk about George Romero, he kind of gets dirt thrown on him for how many of the movies he made in this world, but I think it's cool how we kept going back to this world, and you see, like you said, how things just keep getting worse and worse as the movies go on.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I think people that hate on that, are just like, they're a product of their own fucking critique, like where it's like along the way, Romero probably just got like no signs that anybody wanted anything else but zombies from him. And so he probably kept revisiting this world that he created. And it's a really dope fucking thing to revisit because he just breathes more life into it. And it's probably one of the, I mean, The Walking Dead has like some longevity to it now, but it's like the world that he created, like shows, like you said, the kind of like over time demise, which is something you don't get very often in like a single zombie movie. You're just in the world that's there. So anyway, it's just, Day of the Dead. What a great like third movie in that, third act in that film series.
Of course. Yeah.
And it just, though it's not my favorite in the series, Dawn of the Dead will always be. Day of the Dead is just fucking fantastic. Can't state it enough.
I just like the claustrophobic feel of it, and like you said, where you learn that it's not just the zombies that are the villains here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you would, and that's happened and I feel like other zombie related things have kind of owe this to that feel, but in any kind of zombie movie, you get the feel that if you were in this situation, you would want to work with your fellow man, but due to resources being smaller, whatever the situation is, it always turns into where other humans are a villain too.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that that's the case.
Yeah. It gives you an inescapable feeling.
Then again, who knows how you would be in that sort of situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is interesting.
It's the truth, but there's just so much aesthetic that they bring to those, to Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead. Like the music is awesome. It's like the blood work is awesome. It's just there's so much to love about it. But. Yeah. That's not the only 1985 movie that is worth its salt. That's for sure.
Of course not.
What's next on your 85 list?
What's next on mine is it's not only one of my favorite vampire horror movies, but it's one of my favorite horror movies. 1985's Fright Night.
Yeah.
It's directed by Tom Holland, who
Spider-Man?
No, he directed Child's Play, which is another one of my favorite movies. This is his directorial debut. Then he also directed Child's Play and Thinner. But Fright Night, it's just everything about this movie. I love the plot. I love the setting. I love the characters. I love the effects. Chris Sarandon is amazing as the villain, Jerry Dandridge. It's just, I love this movie. I could watch. It's one of those movies where I could watch every day for the rest of my life and still come away
like enjoying
excited that I just. Oh yeah, it's. I love this movie. And for anyone that hasn't seen it or has only seen the really fucking shitty remake, like, please go watch Fright Night.
Dude, the remake is fucking garbage. Like, yeah,
awful.
I was so disappointed that like, yeah. Anyway, but this dude, like, you get some, like the way the vampires look in this movie, in the in this Fright Night is like the design is so cool. Like the fangs and everything, like,
and it's got a really cool aspect to the movie where it feels like it's how it would be if you discovered that your neighbor was a vampire. There's people that wouldn't believe you, people that would believe you.
Yeah.
Everything. It's just a really cool feel to where it's different than other vampire movies. You know what I mean?
I agree, man. Yeah, this is one. I mean, I kind of think you nail it with saying like this is one that has so much rewatchability.
Oh yeah.
that it's like you could do, if you ask me, you could do like a really cool double header. Like if a drive-in was looking for like a vampire double header, do Fright Night and Lost Boys, and that'd be
hell yeah,
that would be a really cool fucking night. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's another one of my favorites too, for sure.
But like you know, this movie, like I've seen it only. I feel like I've only watched it like maybe a handful of times, and I feel shame for only watching it like at least 5 times. Okay. You know what I mean? But like, it just has a different feel to it. You know what I mean? It's not just like a vampire movie where these vampires are going around killing people, or, you know, like I feel like different vampire movies have their own feel. Like I really like From Dusk Till Dawn, but that's more of like this closed in people fighting off a bunch of vampires, which happens in a lot of vampire movies, where this is more essentially one vampire, but he's this very good looking, attractive older gentleman that you wouldn't suspect is a vampire, and no one wants to believe Charlie because he is a horror fan and he's obsessed with that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and then you know,
that's one of the things that like I think is so. I think as like a horror fan, you get attached to so much about Charlie's character is that like he's a horror fan, and as somebody who's like always loved, you know, supernatural horror sci-fi movies, like you always leave that question of like, man, what if that happened to me?
Totally.
You know, like really, like, and so that kind of like gives you this movie gives you that ability to sort of like almost live vicariously in that way, you know?
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. There's just a lot of cool characters, you know what I mean? There's Roddy McDowell, you know, he plays Peter Vincent, who portrays this character on TV that has his own block of horror movies and portrays himself to be a vampire hunter, but then in real life once he realizes that Jerry Danders is real, he's like afraid of him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some great effects in this movie, like when Evil Ed like transforms into the werewolf-esque creature, or even more cooler is when Jerry Danders' henchman gets like liquefied on the stairs.
God,
yeah,
that's right. that shit. Oh yeah. Dude,
beautiful sequence.
Beautiful.
I love this movie, bro. I could talk about it all day. It's one of my all-time favorites.
I legit think like after we get done with this, I'm gonna go and like, I'm probably just gonna like buy it in my Apple library so I can fucking watch it. Because like legit, it's one of those I always try and look for, but I can never find. You know what I mean? So like just streaming wise. So
it's also like
I want to get,
you know, when people talk
DVD copy.
When people talk about vampire movies, you know, like you said, they're going to mention The Lost Boys. They're going to mention Interview with the Vampire. They're going to mention Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is one I don't think gets enough love as it should. Which is unfortunate.
I agree. Which it is really strange when you think of, like, for how good it is, like why it gets like so overshadowed, you know?
But I just remember being younger, and like I said, like Child's Play was one of the first horror movies that I really liked. So when I discovered this and realized that it was Tom Holland's his first movie ever made, I was like, what a great first movie to come out with. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
And it's also one of those movies that, like I said, it encompasses why I love practical effects, because they're amazing.
You know, that's one thing that you can like forever take away from like I hope we mention it on every single podcast that we do.
Totally.
Practical effects, people. Like you cannot live your life in a CGI world. All right.
No. But yeah, if whoever's listening, if for whatever reason it's just slipped by you, you know what I mean? Go see Fright Night, because it's a fucking classic.
Yeah. And again, not the remake. Not the
no. There was a sequel to this movie that I'd never seen, but it's like a continuation of Charlie, where he goes to college.
Oh, really?
I need to see it, but before we jump into the last two movies we're going to talk about, and both of them are it's going to be a doozy. I just have two more quick shout outs. So in 1985, we had, we talked about Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, 1985 we had a quick turnaround with this. They obviously, because the first movie, I forget, it made a shitload of money. So of course they were gonna make a second one, and the second one is kind of like a polarizing movie because some people either really like the sequel or really don't. But nowadays it's considered one of the first like intentional or not, like first like gay horror movies. There's a really good documentary about the guy that plays the main character in it, and he's gay himself. But it's just a really good documentary about him and his life and having to live in the shadow of that character. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
And then also Demons, which if you've never seen, is a great movie about people that go to watch a movie about demons, and then demons come to life, and this people in a theater get overrun by them, and there's all these different types of demons, great effects, beautiful movie.
Diamonds.
Demoni. Yeah.
Demoni. I guess the only other the random one I'm going to shout out. This is actually due solely to an old friend, Patrick Baker. He at one point in time when we were all living together at the estate, he put on this movie called Vampire. Well, goddamn it, I gotta get it right. Vampire Hunter D, and it's this anime. It's an anime movie, but it's a really dark, like foreboding vampire anime movie, and it just like it like a lot of like good horror, it just establishes this like phenomenal like aesthetic and tone that like it to me is like hard to recapture, but it does have like some cool like jump scares and stuff. It is an animated movie, so you're not really getting like any like crazy practical effects or anything, but it's a cool movie. I just wanted to shout it out because it's technically listed as a horror movie.
Right.
But yeah, man, the last two movies, like you said, the last two movies we've set aside are juicy. They're rich. They're like a simmering marinara, But I'll get mine out of the way because I know your last pick's the real home run. But 1985 gave us one of my favorite horror movies.
Totally.
Reanimator. Reanimator is
it's
so
glorious.
Fucking cool, man. Like the effects are like look great. The everything you get that I love about like some of these 80s movies, like just the way it looks, like the lighting in some scenes, the sound effects and soundtrack that come with this movie, things like that are just are incredible. But one cannot understate the performance of the main character.
Jeffrey Combs is amazing. It's like he's like one of those roles, like him as Herbert West is one of those roles where it was like you couldn't picture someone else doing it.
He's just so like it's just he's so focused. So he is like an he's like a scientist studying under like another scientist who supposedly has like created this formula.
Dr. Hans Gruber,
Dr. Hans Gruber. Is that the same guy from Die Hard?
Well, it's the same name.
But anyway, and he supposedly created this formula that can bring the dead back to life. And so this is kind of like a take on a zombie movie, if you think, because it's centered around bringing the dead back to life.
Yeah, reanimating the dead. Yeah.
But there's just some really,
like you said, how everything looks cool. Even just like the syringe full of the green liquid is fucking awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Like it all looked radioactive,
Totally. And before you jump into more about this movie, there's a couple things that I really love about this movie. I love anything that Barbara Crampton's in. I love anything that Stuart Gordon has directed and anything that Brian Usna was attached to. And that's a name that we have mentioned many times on this podcast. And he obviously went on to direct the sequel. But yeah, that's a good 1-2 punch.
Oh yeah. The Gordon Usna.
Yeah.
It's true. So basically what this movie does is like it follows, Herbert West to Massachusetts, and there he gets a roommate named Dan, and he establishes a laboratory in Dan's basement.
Yeah.
And he's very insistent on it. Like that's the thing. Everything Herbert West does, he is insistent, and he is determined that his way will be had. And like that's like the fucking like the wild thing about his character. He's like this presence that doesn't back off. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
which is good. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. He's like dead. He's dead set on like carrying on what the person who's studied under, like he wants to make this work. You know what I mean? Seems like his whole life goal at this point is to make this this work. You know what I'm saying?
And after a fashion, he basically him and Dan, who discovers what's kind of going on.
His dead cat.
Yeah, he reanimates Dan's dead cat, and so Dan kind of, in a way, just sort of partners up with West.
Yeah,
and they move it from there to like immediately wanting to try it on a dead human body, and they end up sneaking into the morgue at the university that they're medical students at, and that's when they reanimate their first body.
Hilarity ensues. Yeah, obviously some hilarity ensues in some of these scenes, but I just feel like there there's this really interesting plot that kind of unfolds with that's what makes it not just a zombie movie, is like there's like this interesting plot that unfolds with like oh fuck, what is her name? God damn it. Now I'm blanking on the character's name. Dan's girlfriend's like Megan.
Her like father ends up
oh yeah he's like, the dean. Man,
he ends up getting getting killed and brought back to life at one point.
Like real quick, like you mentioned earlier how Herbert West is like dead set on this. It's even shown where they try it on this first corpse, it doesn't work, and then he's like, oh well, let's try it on this person who just died because maybe it'll take with a freshly dead corpse, like you said. Like he wants this to work.
Yeah, he's not he's not waiting. Like he if any variable can be tested, he's like, I'm there. Like anyway, like it just all culminates in such a interesting fashion because it's not the dean, it's the head of the medical,
Dr. Hill. Yeah,
Dr. Hill. So Dr. Hill eventually it's just that he's reanimated, but he gets reanimated in this really cool way where it's his head and his body are two separate and things, and so like it's a really cool dynamic to see him interacting with things, like having a body, like his body pick him up and like
it's amazing,
his head, and like while he's talking and stuff, and you're just like, I don't know, it's really well done. Like
there's also that hilarious scene where he goes back to the lab and has this like fake head on and sneaks into the lab while talking to the security. It's hilarious. It's like we're not doing it justice, but it's a great fucking scene.
They do a really good job of like sprinkling in some like comedy in there, you know what I mean? And that kind of keeps you, I think it's one of the things that just overall helps the whole aesthetic of the movie, because it's a fantastical thing that there's like being presented like this guy's gonna he can reanimate corpses, like, and so it's kind of fun but overall, like it's again, like I feel like this is a staple of horror movies. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had a poster up on my wall, like a Reanimator poster. I'm really miffed that I don't have one, actually. Because like the cover even like is iconic. Like everything about this movie is iconic. Like, and it's sprung I'm not like a huge fan of the sequels, and I've only seen like I think like one, but there's technically like a few like random spin-off sequel kind of movies for this property,
and they all have their own merits, but it's definitely the first one. There's a reason why it's a cult classic, and there's a reason why so many people thoroughly enjoy this movie, and why, like you said, it's got this massive fan base and is still remembered to this day. It's unique, it's creative, it's got horror elements, it's comedic, it's got some great effects, it's got some memorable scenes, like, you know, the really creepy scene where she's strapped down to the table and there's like the head joke.
Giving the zombie head or the reanimated head giving head, like.
And there's also the cool ending, which kind of gives you like Bride of Frankenstein vibes. You know what I mean? It's a really well done movie.
Yeah, I think one of its successes is that it paid attention to other properties within that realm, like zombie movies, like or even like, you know, like you said, like Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein kind of properties, where it learned some things, I think, to pay homage to. While they were making this movie, which I think helped to just establish its character and presence even more.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where I'll be honest, the first time I watched it was like a year or two ago, but I'm just glad that I came around it later rather than never, because I've always heard so many good things about it. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, why the fuck haven't I seen this earlier? Yeah, you know what I mean. That's how I feel like every movie we've been talking about. Like, if somebody hasn't witnessed one of those movies, like, that's it. Like, you have that moment of like, we're gonna watch them, and you'll be like, why the fuck haven't I watched this? You know? Yeah. Now I kind of like how you just said you want to go watch Fright Night. Now, when I get off work tonight, I'm probably gonna watch Reanimator. Nice, man. Text me about it if you do. I will. But yeah, the sequels are all right. You know, they don't have the same like power that the first one did, but they're still entertaining. Yeah, it's also, you know, it's obviously one of those movies that's you know, based off of an H.P. Lovecraft property. So I don't know, there's a lot of that out there. Yeah. Well, Lovecraft was a good, like, in like, you know, again, like, sort of like one of those, you know, really influential storytellers. Not that Lovecraft's not that Lovecraft's to be admired themselves, but yeah, I like anything Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna, so you really cannot go wrong. Well, and that takes us right into your last pick, because it's another you can't go wrong director. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. You cannot go wrong with Argento. And I'm so happy that we're finally talking about this in like a good, because I've talked about it before multiple times. I've mentioned it. I briefly talked about it. But you've been like finally a boiling pot of water, just like about ready to overflow, like ready to go. Yeah. Ready to boil over. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. So 1985's Phenomena is one of my favorite horror movies ever made. And I know I said this before, but it's going to be kind of like a hot take, but it's also my favorite Argento movie. And I know a lot of people aren't a fan of it. There's people that are a fan of it. I think it's one of those movies where either you love it or you're not, or you just really didn't connect with it. I love everything about it because it's got everything that makes an Argento movie, but the dial is turned up. Like I said before, I think it's one of those times where it was, you know, he had made a bunch of movies up to this, and I think he finally made something that he wanted to just go balls to the walls and do whatever he wanted to do with it. Because boy, totally. Is this movie nuts? Totally, man. Man. I'm gonna, obviously I want you to talk about it the most, but you know, this has some really, like all Argento movies, has some really great use of music to like drive some scenes and stuff like that, and you know, you get some great deaths. You know, there's some glass trauma. There's
yes, sir.
I love that. Like the first time I watched it, like that first death, like there's amazing deaths in this movie, but the first death where her head blasts into the glass, but just the shot of her head getting thrown down the waterfall is fucking great.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool, man. And yeah, you're right. Like there's at least a couple instances of like great glass related, like glass or like a head going through the window pane kind of shot, like classic.
Totally.
Oh, I fucking love it.
But just everything about this movie, the setting, that's like a good setting where she's at this girls' school, but just. There's so many nutty things about this movie. She's got this psychic link to bugs. Donald Pleasance plays this entomologist who has a pet chimpanzee who ends up killing Frau at the end. Like,
dude,
it's just like I'm saying, it's a nutty movie. And I think if anybody else tried to make a movie like this, it would have fucking been awful.
I mean, I agree. I think Argento. He pulled it off, but I don't think like a lot of people could like have the reputation, the vision to like make that work. But yeah, dude, Donald Pleasance, like as an entomologist, like he there's that shot, it's a really grisly looking shot where he's like talking to those detectives kind of early on in the movie, and he's describing like the life cycle of the fly, and they like unveil the thing that he's been studying to help them give like
this
accurate death date, and it's just like this grody, like rotting like head with like covered in maggots, and you get these like close-up shots of and stuff like that. Fucking just
it's the head from the girl that got
gross.
decapitated. Yeah, it is ooey gooey and gross. Yes. It's awesome. It's beautiful. Man. Yeah.
But also, I just want to say, it is cool to see Donald Pleasance. He has like a history in film and everything, but it's always fun to see him in something other than as Loomis and how
totally because he's more like lighthearted and just like gets to play like kind of. It's still a weird role, but more of like a normal role where obviously in Halloween, he's playing this character who's had this long history with Michael Myers and therefore has led him to have these moments where he is an asshole or he, you know what I mean? But in this, he gets just play this sweet old man with a pet chimpanzee.
With a pet chimp.
I wonder how and one thing that I'm amazed about this movie too is like how they got this chimpanzee to do the things it did. It's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, well, and I feel like this was a thing that was happening right around the time where like, for some reason, like monkeys in movies was kind of popular. Like I can't quote the year, but there is like that Clint Eastwood movie with the fucking orangutan. There's like, it's like, and there's other examples. That's the one that always sticks out to me. But then it's just like, I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like in the 80s, people were trying to plug monkeys into movies as like, the new partner in crime.
Well, it's kind of like, we at one point we reviewed Shakma, and that's another one where they got this baboon to do all kinds of fucking crazy shit. Like,
there's like, yeah, dude, Shakma is fucking wild. But that, there are shots in Phenomena where where the chimp walks like with Jennifer Connelly over to the stair lift. And like gets on the stair lift, presses the button.
It's cute, yeah.
Like,
it's cool.
It's just like, well, just because it's like it's not like a fast-paced sequence either. Like they take, they take the time walking over the room, and so it's just sort of like, it is cool to see like how well the chimp performed. I guess I don't know.
Totally. There's also like
what I'm trying to say.
A long sequence later in the movie where it's out on its own after. After John McGregor, Donald Pleasance's character gets brutally killed. That's a cool shot too, where he's coming down the stair lift and can't see who the person is at the bottom and gets killed by the killer, like wearing like a raincoat. But there's a scene.
Pole.
Yeah, the pole with the attachable blade. It's awesome.
Dude, it's so cool.
Fucking awesome. But yeah, there's this like long scene where Inga, the chimp, is like digging through a garbage can and finds a switchblade in there. It's so random, but it's a cute chimpanzee. But I think it's cool how the chimpanzee at the end comes in to save Jennifer at the end and kills Frau. The whole movie is amazing. It's filled with plenty of great cinematography, music, kills, set pieces. But the last and the thing I like about a lot of Argento movies is that the movies always end on this crazy note. There's always a crazy last scene, but this movie is just ramped up to like 200 in the last 20 minutes. The sequence with where Jennifer makes her way down to the basement, the detective is chained up. She falls into that, it's so disgusting, the gigantic pit of maggots and rotten. God damn, it's so disgusting. All the skeletons and maggots in that pool. I couldn't even imagine how bad that would smell and how disgusting that was. Whoa. Geiger breaks his own fucking hand to escape the cuffs, beats Frau to death, you think. And then Jennifer discovers her son, Patau, which is named after Patau syndrome, which obviously in the movie it's a little more extreme, but that's like an actual disease that you can have where your face disfigurement. But she discovers her son that lives in the basement. That's a fucking creepy looking. Makes her way out to the boat. He chases her out. She has a swarm of flies come in to fucking brutally maul his face. They fall into the water. She escapes to the shore, and then as she gets to the shore, her father's friend, who Morris, who she had spoke on the phone with earlier to come pick her up, shows up out of nowhere. As they're running to embrace, Frau runs up out of nowhere and fucking decapitates him, and it's an amazing decapitation. And then the monkey comes and kills Frau, which is just such I'm not doing this justice. It is one of the most insane last 15, 10, 20 minutes of a movie you'll ever see.
Well, dude, because it just you think it's ramped up enough, and then it just ramps and ramps and ramps, and it's just
amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned the swarm of flies, and there's like that shot, and then there's another sequence with like a large swarm of flies in the movie, and like I kept wondering during both, I was just like, how did they like attract these flies, or like make that happen, yeah. Oh, dude, that ending though, you're right, it's just like, I don't know, you just get boom bap, and like, you just get, it's so cool.
There's a lot that happens. The whole movie is like balls to the wall. I don't know, man. I love it.
It is fucking solid. And it's like, I feel like that's like a pre-Labyrinth Jennifer Connelly too, so it's like a really young Jennifer Connelly.
She's super young.
And it's kind of like funny. It's just kind of funny to see her in like something really early, but she, again, plays this. It's just like the character she plays just doesn't have any control. She may have a psychic link to, insects, but
totally.
She just, everything around her is just happening, and she just has to like deal with it, But one of my favorite shots is when she gets like, it is just like when she gets like back to the school at one point, and like all the students are like reading a letter or something like that she wrote, and they're all mocking her, and the Frau's mocking her, and she like just like has this intense moment where she summons millions of fucking flies to the goddamn window, and you see this, like, it shows this outward shot, this huge dark swarm, like it's just massive, and it makes you think, like, legit, like, dude, the power over insects, like that is some shit, man. Like that could really do some damage, Like
it's true. It's an interesting. That's what I mean. It's just like, I feel like that's something that only Argento could have made.
It is such a unique element to bring to a character in a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Like, he could have easily just made this a straightforward, mysterious killer movie. But like adding like an element like that, like you said, just shows that he's willing to ramp it up. Like, he's willing to test you as a viewer to like what you want to see, or like what you want, like what the experience can be. It's fucking
true,
cool, man. It is fucking.
You know how you mentioned this scene with where the insects are covering like the exterior of the school.
Yeah.
So it was like an interesting way how they achieved that. So they dumped a bunch of coffee grounds into a tank of water, filmed it, and then superimposed that footage over an existing background shot.
Oh, whoa.
It's pretty interesting.
That is wild. That is so fucking creative, dude. Like that's super cool.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these days that wouldn't happen, but that's the creativity that these filmmakers went to back in the day.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, the cool thing about this movie too is that, in most of his movies, he teamed up with Goblin a lot, or members of Goblin, but this one had more. It had Iron Maiden. It had more like this like heavy metal soundtrack, which I think worked for the movie.
Yeah, dude. It definitely worked for the movie, and it was cool to see. Like, it's, again, I feel like something that you don't necessarily get too often anymore is like a really bold soundtrack. Where it's like,
that's a good word.
It doesn't, because it's like, I don't know. I think it jives because I think the music he chooses really helps like push like his sequences further, and like it helps. It really is like a part of the scene. But it's like I don't know. You just don't see somebody throwing in like a fucking Iron Maiden track in the middle of a fucking horror movie anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Another interesting thing about this movie is that like part of it, like the bugs and everything, was inspired by the fact that he learned that like insects are sometimes used during like murder investigations.
Oh, so that is like a legit thing, huh?
That's why that's like an integral plot, where he talks, like in that scene where you mentioned, where he talks about, what's the word I'm looking for?
What's that? It's that scene when he's talking about
he talks about the life cycle of them, and at this point they're a larva, and at this point they're, you know what I mean? It's just interesting. You would have never thought of that. So
no, fuck no, dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah,
it is an amazing movie with so many memorable things that happen. I know we say this a lot, like, pretty much, like, we kind of wrap up every episode by saying, if you haven't seen this movie, or even if you have, go see it. Like, more than any other movie, for anyone that's listening that hasn't seen it, please, 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 please go watch Phenomena. And I really hope you come away with it with as much love for the movie as I did, or at least enjoy it. So,
fuck yeah. No, I think that's a great way of looking at it. It's true. Like Phenomena, Reanimator, all that. Like I said, like all of these movies, like they have varying levels of like what's of like how, like, necessity in terms of like staples in horror movies. But some of them, like the last two here, are like, really, I think, if our buddy Dusty was here, they'd be quintessential.
Yeah.
Quintessential.
They're not your run-of-the-mill horror fare. They're very unique, creative, entertaining movies.
But that's the whole genre, though. That's what I love about the genre. The genre pushes and pulls and makes you like it makes you believe or try things that you wouldn't like normally think about or pursue or believe in, and I think that's one of the things that brings horror movies such a unique, or horror directors like a very unique edge, is that they can sometimes embrace that, like Argento does, and really use it to push the like how his film looks, or how what kind of like music will be accepted in this, and like you're not afraid of polarizing. You're just afraid of you're just making something that some people will really love.
Totally. And even if they don't, you know what I mean? Fuck them.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's why I say I feel like this is like a passion project for him. So,
yeah.
Because a lot of his movies are, nuts. Or there's parts of it that are so different than any other horror director, but this one, like I said, is just next level.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, hey, we'll have to leave this episode there because we covered a lot of really fucking solid stuff, but we're not done with the 80s yet.
Not quite yet.
We still have some years to dig into.
Yes, we do.
Though we're wrapping up 83 through 85, we'll be back next episode with some fresh ones. So
yes, sir.
Fresh years. All right. Well, hey, we'll leave it there. David, do you have any final thoughts?
No. Just go watch
fucking
horrors.
Phenomena, you idiots.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Well then, good day, hot dogs.